empathy is one of those things that everyone sees the beauty in. And no one takes a step to say, is there a point where empathy becomes a response to a past trigger event or trigger scenarios that have happened that is actually not helpful anymore? Hey, it's me, Erin. Thanks for joining us on the More Love podcast. Do not tell Rebecca, but this podcast is about empathy. She likes people to think she's dead inside, but the truth is she's a big-time feeler who has truly helped me uncover that empathy is my superpower. Oh, here she comes.
Hey, bestie.
Hi, love.
What are you doing?
Oh, just getting ready to host a podcast.
A podcast? About what?
Life. Our life as best friends, who are more like sisters.
Yay! I love us, and I can't wait to share our stories with the world.
Especially the ones that involve us pushing each other, right? To be our most authentic selves.
Oh, man. Okay.
All right, so this happened. I get a little flyer home from school, and it breaks down in health class in elementary school what types of topics they're covering in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade.
Oh.
Okay. I know you love this.
Love this. That's my...
You love this.
Love it.
So when it comes to 4th grade, at the very bottom of the little block that talks about what exactly they are covering, it says physical development, and then it says in all caps, girls only. And so I read it, and I'm like, okay.
You mean like boobs?
I don't know yet. I had to do some additional information seeking.
Okay.
So I didn't know. Then I looked down to 5th grade, and 5th grade basically girls and boys, where we're going to talk about probably birds and the bees at that point. Okay, in 5th grade.
I don't think so.
But girls and boys.
I don't think they talk about sex in elementary school. I think it's periods for girls and wet dreams for boys.
I'm 100% positive.
Is that still a thing? Does wet dreams still happen to people?
100% positive that they don't talk about wet dreams with boys in 5th grade.
Why?
That's not happening.
Why?
That's just not a thing that we talk about.
That doesn't happen to boys.
No, I don't think we touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Oh.
In health class.
Oh, then what do you talk about with boys? Pubic hair?
Yeah. Well,
armpit hair?
I don't.
Smelliness?
I'm trying.
You smell.
Figure this out.
Go wash your You smell. You don't got no riz if your and your pits stink.
Listen, I'm trying to figure out at this point why only the girls
because
are included.
Of menstruation. Oh my God, you're the best. You're the best. Thank you. I gotta wait till it cools down because he don't got no ice.
So I'm trying to figure out why in 4th grade we're only talking to the girls about physical development.
I would agree.
So I wrote to the health teacher.
Of course you did. Of course you did. Okay, I can't wait to hear the response.
I said, thank you for the note you sent home about the health curriculum. My son is in 4th grade, and when I was reviewing the topics that would be addressed, I noticed that physical development will be a lesson that is available to girls only. I wondered why this was, not as a criticism, but more out of curiosity. Could you provide me with some more information?
Oh, it's a very nice email.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure, it wasn't taken that way, but it's fine.
Yeah, even with not criticism.
I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure they're like, and at the bottom it says Erin Halligan Avery, PhD. Doctor, business owner, and judger of all things.
I did not. So I just wrote, thank you, Erin.
Oh, okay.
I did. I didn't throw the title around.
Yeah.
PhD all up in everybody's business.
Yeah. So she writes back, good morning. Thank you so much for reaching out. Our puberty education program starts with girls in 4th grade because on average, girls begin puberty 2 to 3 years before boys. There is also a bit more maturity for our boys when learning about this topic in 5th grade.
Wrong.
Makes sense.
Wrong.
Our girls' puberty in 4th grade is an additional 2 sessions outside of the regular scheduled health class and focuses on menstruation along with some other body and emotional changes.
Okay.
I do still review with all 4th grade classes personal hygiene as bodies are changing at all different rates. Please do not hesitate to ask any additional questions or concerns. I have heard some great reviews on, quote, the body book for boys. Do I already have that? Yeah. Okay. We've been reading it for 2 years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
From a few parents. That coffee smells like my dog's shit.
Oh.
That smells like my dog took a shit in this.
It does not smell like shit, Scott. It smells like wonderful coffee.
It smells like dog dookie right here on the floor.
It does.
What?
Does not.
Oh my God, it's so bad.
That's funny.
And now, should I take offense?
No, because it doesn't smell like that.
No, I didn't say Scott smells like dog dookie on the floor. I said the coffee.
Coffee that I just stopped.
You might have made it, but like, is it your coffee? Like, is it your coffee shop that makes that coffee?
No, but it's
okay. Oh my God, it's so bad. It smells like June took a shit on the floor.
I don't think it's the coffee.
Wasn't sure what to get you to because I have Cafe Bustelo, but I also have the Dunkin' Donuts, and I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna make you Cafe Bustelo and have you be like, this is too strong.
I'll talk about getting the shits.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cuban shits.
Cuban shit.
Yeah. It's a spicy poopy.
Oh my God.
So she basically tells me that I can get body book for boys from parents if I'm interested on discussing this more at home.
Okay.
So
you couldn't let it go.
I remain confused. Mm-hmm. I just got that message.
Oh.
I remain confused. Okay. So I'm hearing that boys, maturity-wise, are not ready to be talking about physical development or girls' physical development.
No, they separate the girls and the boys. It's not one classroom. At least I'm making a big assumption based on my experience back in elementary school. This was not a group topic. The girls went in one room, the boys went in one room, and they were very gender-focused when it came to puberty. So
fair.
Yeah, if you have a mixed group of boys and girls and you're like, let's talk about periods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, just so we're clear, I will be talking to my son about periods. I will be talking to my son about all of those things.
Oh, I talk to my girls about it too.
Absolutely am aware that that's not the best course of action in a 4th grade health class, right? But what I'm confused about is when it comes to physical development, the statement that girls physically develop 2 to 3 years on average earlier than boys, then my question would be if we know that to be true.
I think that's a medical determination, not a mental determination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
So then should I be expecting in health class in 3 years that my son's having a physical development section? Or are we just going to leave them off completely?
Well, that would be, what, 6th grade? I think you need the middle school curriculum.
5th, 6th, or 7th grade?
Then you need, so in middle school, they also have health classes, but at this point, they are combined. This is not, we're no longer separating them. The boys will now learn about the periods. The girls will be like, yeah, that's why I'm a bitch every month. It's like a bigger conversation.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're thinking in 6th or 7th grade, my son is going to get physical development education for his growing body at that time.
No, I think your autism is reading the email literally. And she's saying, on average, girls are just maturing faster. So this is why we choose to do it in this area.
Totally fair.
Yeah.
When's my kid getting physical development education?
Ask what the 5th grade curriculum is. Did she give you?
I had the 5th grade curriculum, and we do not discuss physical development. We discuss essentially, it doesn't say birds and the bees, but it's essentially talks about that the boys and girls will be separated, but we will start to have those conversations in 5th grade. Okay. So we've missed the whole lesson on physical development. So we're going to start talking about that before we talk about physical development. So my thought was there's a lot of things we could talk about in physical development that happen for boys. And so if maturity-wise they're not able to talk about it at this point, which sounds to me like a classroom management problem, not a physical development problem. Right. Then I would expect to be seeing that later in the curriculum. I would expect there to be some type of discussion about changing voices, about testicles and production of sperm.
I think isn't that part of it?
Body hair,
Yeah.
how you stink.
Right. All the things.
So I'm not sure where that happens in the curriculum because in 4th grade it says girls only.
Hard-ons.
That was all in middle school for me. But I went
That
to
came up in middle school? Okay.
I was, I was also in Florida,
What does that mean?
backward ass state. But and it was also in the early 80s. So we didn't know
So
shit back then.
you're telling me my follow-up question is, who do I contact at the middle school to find out what the health curriculum is? Because I'm really
You could.
fascinated because what I fear is happening here is because boys are not mature enough to be able to handle these conversations at this point.
Penis.
Yep, exactly. At any point in their life, that we have decided that, it's just easier if we skip over some of those lessons or we let those lessons happen at home. Or
I don't think so.
We don't engage in those conversations.
I don't think so. I really think that
You do think they're going to have the conversation at some point.
Yes. I just don't know when and where. And I also get the feeling that her emails to you are extremely vague. They're not pinpointed with specific topics. Therefore, your autistic brain is not connecting those dots. So you just need more clarity. You want to know with confirmation these things will be discussed and when. Mm-hmm. And then you will judge
if that's appropriate or
Correct.
or the right timeline, or if it needs to be done differently.
Correct. And then you will request that your child be brought into the 6th grade health class because we're at that level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm aware.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Please give me the 6th grade curriculum. I'll
Right.
start teaching it to him now.
Yes.
So that he's
Yes.
aware that by the time he's in 6th grade, he's
Right.
like, oh, yeah, I've just known this all along.
Right.
Now, to be fair, I understand I'm not a quote unquote normal parent. We have been talking
the same
about.
As far away from a normal parent as you can possibly.
Yes. We've been talking about bodies. We've been talking about consent. We've been talking about all of these things since the kid was 2. We have body books that he'll read at night at bedtime, right? Like these are just because I really believe that these aren't conversations that you have one time in the living room when it's awkward because something comes up.
That's right.
It's a cumulative conversation that makes it less awkward when
I
these
agree.
things do come up.
But I went to college fully intending to be a health teacher. So none of this is weird that's why you and I, it's not weird for me.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I'll say to Sawyer all the time, I'm like, girl, you wearing a bra? Look at those torpedoes. Like, no, we're not doing that. So I get it together, because I don't want it to be weird. I want it to be a conversation. I want it to be all those kinds of things. And,
But also, I think it's really important at this age, and again, part of it is knowing your child, to be I need to have a conversation with my son about changes that happen for girls.
Right.
What that looks like, what that feels like, what their experience is like, what a period is, why a period happens. How are we teaching sex ed if we've not already taught a boy what a period is?
Right.
And again, I think that this is crazy talk. And I do really genuinely understand the limits that come from public education and what should be taught in public education, and how, I give these people a lot of credit that you're dealing with an entire spectrum full of people and their maturity levels, in addition to what their own parents feel comfortable or not comfortable about.
And don't negate the fact that every human being is different. There could be a 10-year-old experiencing her period and going through all of the things. And then there could be a 16-year-old in health class who's nowhere near, just based on their genetics. And
or a 4th grader or 5th grader who's already gotten their period.
I just said that, but yeah.
Oh.
Well, I used the word 10.
10 would be 5th grade.
Right.
You're right.
So there's a lot of dynamics in there, and that you're trying to have this fishnet out there. And if a child is so far from that, they're not even going to be engaged or paying attention, because it's like, what? Especially if they've never heard it at home,
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
I know. Like I go far as to say
over here.
I go so far as to say to my kids about periods, I'm like, people use the word blood. It doesn't look like blood. In fact, come here. This is what it looks like, you know, because it's so confusing. Even on TV commercials, they're using water to show
Or
pads.
red glitter.
Right. Like just what?
Red glitter is my favorite.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
It just does make it such a beautiful process every month, doesn't it?
right.
Just red glitter comes out of my crotch.
come on.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting to see how that all plays out. But
I'm just asking the questions over here.
I think it's great. I think
Asking
they're
the
great questions.
Yep. I already have the body
I'm glad
book
you
for
read
boys. Thank you.
the parent note that got sent home.
I know.
I don't do that.
Absolutely. I did. Did I have a lot of thoughts on it? Yeah. Did I say, maybe this should look different? Yeah. But I didn't go there.
Yeah.
I just focused on the facts.
Yeah.
I'm really doing a good job with that lately.
Yeah. Good for you.
All right. What kind of hippie voo you got for us? I picked the card
You
today.
picked the card. Yeah. It's the Ace of Swords. So the swords is I had it in my head. Now I forgot. The swords represents air, and it's the realm of thought and mental energy.
Okay.
So, all right, let's see if this applies.
Yep.
Ace of Swords, like a lance of lucidity. The Ace of Swords signifies a powerful new beginning and an elevated understanding of the world around you. Way to elevate your consciousness, bruh.
I can't.
No, the blade is sharp. It's not used for mincing. It cuts through malarkey and gets to the point. It offers clear thinking, honest communication, creative vision, and the aha moments. Consider this card a cosmic LASIK procedure that'll remedy years of cloudy sight. Focus ensues, epiphanies abound. Bring in the orchestra and scene. You love these cards?
I hate them so much. I don't even know what you just said. I don't even know what you just said because it was so freaking flowery and ridiculous and metaphorical. And
Bruh. Gain clarity.
can you clarify that for me?
Use your LASIK.
In a clear sense.
That's it. We're getting rid of the cloudiness.
Okay.
We're not going to mince up everything. We're going to take the chunks. We're going to look at it with crystal clear vision because we just got the LASIK.
Okay.
And we're going to move forward with whatever that may
But we
look
don't
like.
need to dissect all of it.
No, maybe that's a hint to you.
Yeah, that's
just
100%
let
for
the
me.
health curriculum go.
Yeah.
And keep doing you, boo.
Just
keep
do my
doing you.
do my
Keep
own
doing
health
you.
education. Hey guys, come on down to the end of the cul-de-sac. Erin's running a health education session down here.
That's right. That's right. And when we're in the shower, wash your pits. Wash the feet. Don't just let the soap go down from your hair and think that's clean in your body. Okay? I know we're no longer in there supervising. But let's be real clear.
All right, last week we talked about a murderous show where this woman was giving a tremendous amount of empathy and love and compassion to her husband who had killed their daughter
And lied.
and lied about it for over 30 years. And I ended that show by asking, is that empathy, the original question was, can empathy ever be stupidity? And what that ended up turning into is empathy ever a trauma response, or can empathy be a trauma response? And I think this topic is fascinating. Very hard for me to talk about because it's very alive and well for me, as empathy could potentially be a trauma response instead of just empathy. And
That's alive and well for me too.
Is it?
So I'm not an opposite here. I'm not sure
Okay.
about Scott, but
Okay.
I very much feel the same way that you do when it comes
Okay.
to that.
Okay. So,
Which is probably why I avoid it at all costs.
but interesting that you're avoiding it and I'm embracing it, and both could be trauma responses. Right? So let's talk for a minute about why empathy could be a trauma response.
Okay.
And I don't know a ton about this topic, but I can tell you from what I've seen, one of the things that's been most compelling for me is the thought that empathy serves as people pleasing, and empathy serves as chameleon-like behavior. And I have seen that when you are the child in your family who either fears abandonment or fears that you will not be liked or loved, that there's some degree of conditional associated with that, real or imagined, that empathy serves as the bond to constantly keep you in the favored position. So if you're my mom and I fear that if I do the wrong thing, you're going to remove love from me, or you're going to be very disapproving of something that I've done.
Or because you're an empath and you feel everything, you just feel the energy shift and you just know. There may be no words, there may be no things taken away from you. You just know because the air has shifted in the room.
Because you're so hypersensitive to that happening.
Yes. And so you don't want that to happen. Therefore, you become a people pleaser just because the act of feeling that is so unbearable
and intense. So the people pleasing comes about with, I'm going to quickly recognize what is and is not favorable for you. I'm going to change my behavior to be in line with that which will make you think of me in a positive way. It is going to reduce the possibility that I may not be in your good stead in some way, shape, or form.
I just realized I'm 100% teaching my children to do this.
Wow.
Actively teaching.
To be empathic?
Nope. Well, you're calling it a people pleasing.
People pleasing.
I wouldn't define it as that, but I am 100% when something happens, I pull them aside and I say, do you see what just happened there? They're like, yeah, I don't like it. I said, here's how you fix it, and continue to engage. Immediately.
Because of fear of what for them?
Fear of confrontation, that they might have to have a conversation with somebody and then they don't understand why that conversation is happening. Any
Fear
of that.
of being excluded. Right?
That or anything that's not keep the peace. Just keep the peace and move forward. Here's how we're doing it. Now, does that mean change your internal thoughts or change how you really feel or anything like that? Absolutely not. It just means do what you need to do in the moment and then get out of there.
That's empathy?
Is it?
Or is it different?
I don't know.
Or is it using empathy as a vehicle to, like, empathy in the form of, I'm able to read that this situation didn't go really well, so I'm really over empathizing with this situation, not because I genuinely care about the situation, but because I need to keep myself safe. So, like, empathy is the vehicle in that case.
I think so. And teaching them to very quickly analyze, is this worth the battle? And you can determine that based on that other person, how they respond, how they talk, how they engage. And you should know immediately if this is worth it. And if it's not, here's what you do.
How does Sawyer respond to that?
Very easily.
Because she's
actually more clear than Taylor.
Hypersensitive.
Yeah.
To people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Yes.
But she's also doesn't come across to me as a people pleaser.
But neither does Taylor. That's why I have to teach them. Because I'm like, because they're always confused. They're like, I don't understand. And I'm like, okay, well, here, let me share that with you. And then they get it immediately, and then I watch them do it.
So do they always pick up on the sensitivity of what's happening?
Yes.
But their response, if they didn't have the lens of empathic trauma associated with that, their response would be what? Just to leave it and be like, that was really weird what just happened over there, and walk away?
I don't know, because I don't think I've ever let it really get to that point.
Fair.
I really don't know. Now with me, absolutely. They tell me how they feel because I don't make them feel bad about it. I don't make them feel bad about it. We have conversations, all those kinds of things. But when they're up against somebody else who would do that, they're confused. And so I say to them, well, here's how you fix that. And then I give,
When they're up against someone who would what? Call them out on it?
Or say something that doesn't make sense to them. I don't know. I can't.
And then
it's hard to give an example.
Are you fearful that they would be in that situation, or that they would say something rude back, or that they wouldn't know how to respond? What part are we protecting?
I think me, because if something were to happen to them, they would come to me for clarification, and then that person would then have to have a conversation with me, and I would have to have boundaries and align, and I'm not willing to do that.
It was like secondary empathy trauma going on. I'm grooming my children to not have to get into arguments or disagreements with other people because that means I have to step up to the plate.
Potentially.
And I don't even want the possibility of that happening because that's going to be so uncomfortable, or I'm going to have to set a boundary, or I'm going to have to give in and not want to. And I'd rather just not deal with it at all. Wow. That's freaking crazy and profound.
I know. And I'm not proud of it. It's something that I don't like about myself. It's something that I'm not, it's my, where I feel most comfortable, even though it's sad. It's very sad. And so that's part of the reason I keep the circle small, because it's just easier. It's just easier.
But it's like, can you go over and fix that, please, so that mom doesn't have to fix it later on? Right? That's the feeling? You just noticed what happened there? Can you go over and give her the soccer ball? I know that you don't want to give her that soccer ball.
Not like that. I wish I could give a good explanation. I just can't. It's not like that. It's not like a sharing thing. It's not like a give up all of your whatever. I'm not going head to head with someone that it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. That's the line.
Do you think it'd be different if you felt incredibly confident going head to head? If that was one of your superpowers, I'm incredibly decisive about what is right and what is wrong. I'm very clear that I'm not going to address this situation with you unless I'm very clear what's going on. Bring on that conversation all day, every day. Do you think that would change?
Maybe. I've never really dove into that component, but maybe.
Because that's one of the differences between us, right? I will handle any difficult conversation any day. Bring that right on over to me. I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm also happy to own if my child is the reason why this conversation is happening and it's uncomfortable, right? So it's not always like my kid's always right, but I feel very confident in having those difficult conversations, which then makes me less likely to have to manage Carter's behavior because it doesn't matter what you throw at me, you know what, I got it. Where it does come up with me and tell me if you feel like this is the same is if Carter does something that doesn't feel socially appropriate. An example would be someone coming over to our house and saying, Carter, how are you liking school? He's like, it's good. And then it gets quiet for a minute.
What's wrong with that?
And then they're like, well, what do you really love about it? It's like, I don't know. Oh, well, it was really good to see you, Carter. I had a great time with you today. He's like, yep. It's at that moment that I feel this strong desire to step in because I'm like, oh boy, that feels, again, if it's a reflection of me, right? Like I've not maybe appropriately taught him.
That's right. Or see, I'm not thinking that at all.
What is wrong with his social connection skills? You know,
I just think he's shy. That's all I would think.
Yeah.
Well, and then maybe that's my own stuff.
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't think anything about that conversation. I'd be like, all right, whatever. And you're a kid. Kids don't want to chit chat. Unless you're my kids who just don't shut up. But they're very chit-chatty.
Your kids wouldn't have that type of conversation with me.
They wouldn't chat with you?
No, yeah.
Oh,
they
no,
would.
They would.
They wouldn't be like, school's fine.
Right.
Yep. Taylor, it was so good to see you. Right. I love you so much. Yep. Never. Never. Right? So,
but it wouldn't bother me if they did. I wouldn't be like, excuse me?
You wouldn't?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't have that experience, so I don't know. Keep going.
I don't know. No, I can remember times being at your house and I'm saying something to Sawyer and Sawyer's not paying attention to me because she's doing whatever whoop-de-woo she does on the TV or whatever. And you're like, Sawyer!
No, she has to acknowledge you.
Did Aunt Erin ask you a question? And she's like, yeah, she did. And you're like, well, you talk to her. If she has you a question, you're going to talk to her.
Maybe I instilled it when they were bored. Maybe
you will double down and you will go in there and you'll be like, hey, Erin, ask more questions. Ask more questions. How about you ask some more questions? Because you want to make sure that you've gotten the point across real effing clear that TV is not more important than the conversation that she's supposed to be having with me. And then you'll end it by saying, do you feel satisfied with that conversation, Erin? Because if you don't, why don't you ask some more questions?
But is that because it's you?
I don't know. That's a great question. Is it?
I can also see myself walking right in there and turning the TV off.
I know. But is that just me?
I don't know. Nobody else comes over.
Think about other people that might show up.
Nobody else comes over.
What if it was Scott? What if Scott came over?
Here's what I will say. When they like get a ride home from dance class or whatever, the minute they get out of the car, I'm like, did you have a conversation? Did you say things?
Yep.
Because I'm actually annoyed. You know what? Now that I think about it, I'm annoyed when I'm trying to engage with kids and they're like,
right.
I'm like, did your parents not teach you manners?
Right.
There you go. Full circle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's not very often I volunteer to take kids places.
And so that's the protection for me. The protection for you seems like it's coming out from like, I don't want to have to engage with this parent if my kid is doing something that's not, recognizing what's happening in the room. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's like, I know that that's an area where my kid is really trying very hard and is going to social skills groups and whatever. Mm-hmm. But in some ways, it does feel like a reflection on me when he is not engaging in that social way that people will be like, what the hell? You don't have conversations with him.
Funny.
You don't.
I picked up my daughter from school and she's like, of course, at the last minute, can you bring Logan and his sister home too? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say, no, it's her boyfriend and her boyfriend's sister. And they get in the car. I'm like, hey, how's it going?
Silence.
I'm like, good chat. But I don't think, what's wrong with their parents? Why their parents obviously screwed them up in some way.
Oh yeah, I don't think that either.
I just think that they're shy and they don't want to talk. And I'm not the kind of person that's going to continue to make them feel uncomfortable by drilling at them and go, what's the matter? Cat got your tongue? Why don't you talk to me? What happened at school today? Nothing? It'd be like, just shut up. They don't want to talk. I'm not going to force them to talk because I hated that when I was a kid. When people asking me questions and I don't really want to talk because I'm not comfortable.
But then talk about empathy as a people pleaser. I was the kid who would get in the car and would have all of the full-blown adult conversations.
You are also very uncomfortable with silence.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm the same way. We talked about that at this group. I am so uncomfortable chit-chatting because if there is an awkward silence, I don't know what to do with it. So then I start asking questions. So I would rather just not go at all. Mm-hmm. And so what I found myself at this group, even though I'm running the event, I'm not part of the event. So I would always be behind my computer with my earphones on, pretending I'm on calls and stuff, working because I don't want to chit-chat.
Yep.
Not that I can't.
Yep.
I don't like it. Mm-hmm. Where Taylor would be right in there. Taylor would be right in the middle. Hey guys, look at she's Philip.
She's Philip.
My husband is the social director of the world. He knows every single person in the neighborhood. I don't even know my neighbors' names.
Yep.
It's just that's how
our running joke is that whenever Rebecca's family comes over every year to put up my Christmas tree, and we need Philip
because he's the tall one on the ladder.
He's really tall, and he's the only one who can reach the top of the tree on the ladder. And we're always looking around, and he's in chat with John and Ellen.
Always,
and he's been in there for hours.
Not only that, but if he's out smoking on the driveway, he's talking to whoever else is outside.
Neighbor. Yeah,
I'm like, can you? We're here for a reason.
Joe, who's running for judge. Yeah.
God.
Oh yeah.
That's how he is. So he actually maintains all of it. We're going to a wedding. I'm like dreading going to a wedding coming up because I'm going to have to socialize. Now, granted, I know some people, but this is his work friends. Guess where I'm going to be? At the table by myself.
Yeah. Scrolling your phone.
Yeah, because he doesn't think, he's not savvy enough to bring me around and engage me with their conversations. He's just so excited to hang with his people.
But is that an empathy response or trauma response?
From me?
No, from him.
Oh, I don't know.
Right? So again, you have this like, I don't know, like what is the true emotion versus what is just a response to some way that we've been conditioned to do those types of things.
It's a great question.
Right?
I don't know.
So now that I've gotten a little bit more in touch with my neurodivergence, it's been fascinating to me to be clear about what I really want to do and what I really want to say versus what I previously have and would be saying. They are drastically different.
Right. Every time I see things on TikTok or not TikTok, Instagram, that I'm like, oh my God, Erin, is this you? And then I'll send it to you. And it was all triggered from someone saying to you, do you even know who you are? And then you had said to me a couple of years ago, you're like, I don't know what I like to wear. You know, like those kinds of conversations. And I thought that was really interesting. I'm like, what are you talking about? You've always been decisive. But then when you really analyze it, it's like, am I?
I'm incredibly, it also came up because it was like, God, how can you be so adamantly close with so many individual people? Like I'm super close with Nina. I'm super close with you.
Right.
I'm super close with Renee, super close with Kelly, but they're all independent relationships.
Yeah.
And it would never be the case that I was like, you know what's a good idea? Let's get everyone together.
Right.
That actually sounds horrendous to me.
Right.
Because that's just not.
Because then you'd have to manage all the individual relationships and then people would be confused and then.
But I do have very genuine, close, very intense relationships.
Absolutely.
With these individual people.
Yeah.
But then that can sometimes come off as you and I get this a lot. How can you be so close with Rebecca and also so close with this other person, whoever it is?
Who are
that are incredibly different, crazy, ridiculous, different people.
Yeah.
And then it was through that conversation that it was like, am I just masterful at figuring out who that person is? And then how do we have the best possible relationship based on those factors? Is that me flexing who I really am and being different based on those people? Or is that who I am? Am I just that person? And you're right. That's where it started. And then now all these like Instagram posts keep coming up and
They're so validating.
Oh my gosh, that is so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really made me start to question this empathy as a trauma response. And then I'm like, well, what was the trauma? What were the past situations? And the only thing that can come up for me, and this is again in my conscious mind, because who knows what's happened in my subconscious mind, right? But in my conscious mind, I know my parents were incredibly loving and supportive and would be there no matter what. But I do know that something about their parenting style was conditional for me. And I learned a lot of that through having a brother that was 7 years older. So they never shunned him. They never pushed him to the side. They were never like, oh my God, we don't love you anymore. But I was receiving secondary messages quite consistently about appropriate and inappropriate behavior. Something as simple as, is it okay for my brother to be out until 10:30 at night when his curfew was 10 o'clock? And I'm watching for that, and I'm hyper vigilant, to your point, like very, very clear cut about how is this going to go down. And then I might hear a conversation that was, because you couldn't be home at 10 instead of 10:30, you will be going to bed 30 minutes earlier, or like there was some quid pro quo that would happen. Everything was consequence, reaction, consequence, action, reaction, action, There was no variable or room for flexibility, which I interpreted as conditional. You don't come home at 10:30, you are wrong. If you are wrong, then there will be a consequence to that action. It was an extreme rigidity, if you will. And so when I think about those secondary messages I was receiving and then thinking, well, how did I turn out to be a very loving, caring, kind, empathic, flexible, sometimes in the beginning of having a child, a little too flexible. And that was very much a response for me of not wanting to have that rigidity of conditional love.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right? That's the only thing consciously that I can point that to.
I think what's also hard is when we use the word trauma. Because trauma, in my mind, is associated with assault, really bad things that happen.
Yeah.
And so then when you look at the things that shape you, that are also classified as, quote, trauma, we need another word. And
Yes,
I'm sure
we
there
do.
is one, but Because
Yes, we
I don't
do.
like saying that. Just like you never want your parents to hear you're growing up planted these traumas.
Right.
Because that's not true.
Right.
What is true is they planted these seeds that informed how you were going to be as a human.
And they worked incredibly well in certain situations.
Sure.
It just had an adverse side effect that made me a incredibly empathic, not in a good way, but like an overboard empathic. What we were talking about last week was the woman whose husband killed all these people. And I'm like, I get it. I totally get why we still care about this man, right? And I'm like, logically, that doesn't make sense to me. Logically, that feels so incredibly wrong. And yet, empathy is one of those things that everyone sees the beauty in. And no one takes a step to say, is there a point where empathy becomes a response to a past trigger event or trigger scenarios that have happened that is actually not helpful
Absolutely.
anymore? And where are we talking about that? And in what space? And then how do we carve out space to talk about that without, to your point, making trauma on one side and empathy on the other? That's always been an issue I have with commonplace use of clinical terms.
Yeah.
There's a whole
That's a good point.
nonprofit called the Mental Health Literacy Project that is focused on this, because when you use the term trauma in a clinical setting, there are very specific DSM diagnosable conditions that make it trauma. When we use the term PTSD, it is only because the trauma trigger has had such a lasting effect for over 6 months that is turned into that level of experience. But we throw the term PTSD around like it's anyone's experience who has struggled with something in their past.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
We use the term bipolar or schizophrenia to talk about the weather.
Right. Well, it's the same concept as using the word gay.
Right.
That's gay. That's
Right.
retarded.
Right.
Nobody says that anymore, except you two.
Right. Right. It's,
Yeah.
it's the use of these terms
Yes.
without
Psycho.
really thinking about the psycho, crazy, it's if we don't have other terms to describe events that happened in our life that were impactful, not necessarily in a positive way, but like a life event, a life situation or whatever that doesn't reach the point of a certifiable term trauma. If we don't have a word for that, then everything becomes trauma.
And I think people utilize those certain words as emphasis. Like
To make their point clearer, or
Yes.
to really
Really
be like,
hit it
I
home.
need you to see how bad the
Right.
situation
it may not
was
be
for
diagnosed
me.
PTSD, but this is a true trigger.
Right. Right. And I need to over exemplify it
Yes.
so that you know
That you get it.
Don't touch this part.
Correct.
But then
that's
for someone like me where language matters
Agreed.
so much.
I know.
Right?
It's really hard.
That becomes a challenge.
Yeah, I
And
know.
I've seen a couple people on our Facebook group, which is really just you and me at this point. It's fine. So by a couple people, I mean us, talking about empathy as a trauma response. And I wonder how that changes empathy if we do recognize places where empathy is being done out of a trauma or a past life experience that has not been favorable versus what does that turn empathy into if we just talk about pure empathy? Because I do believe I also have pure empathy in addition to having empathy as a response. And what's the difference? And how do you know? And then how do you distinguish or acknowledge when you're sort of crossing over into some of those places? That's important shit.
Yes, and I don't have an answer.
Right.
That would require me to go into my inner feelings and think about it. And I'm going to say no.
Well, let me tell you this. There's hope for us.
Okay, good.
Because as a new 10-year eligible I guess I'm not tenure eligible yet, tenure track professor
Oh, okay.
at Brockport. I have a research agenda.
Okay.
And I have the next 5 years to produce 4 articles around my research agenda.
Okay. What are we looking at?
I woke up at like 2:30 in the morning.
Okay.
And like Dark Angel Michelangelo standing at the end of my bed,
Oh, that's creepy. Okay.
it came to me that the empathy with boundaries, what we've developed, our business that we've not yet launched yet,
Yep.
and what we are talking about here, and empathy with boundaries that is my research agenda.
Great.
That is what I want to be, like Brene Brown with vulnerability.
Yep.
Empathy with boundaries is what Dr. Erin Halligan Avery is going to be known for.
I love
in
that.
the research field.
I love that.
Now, a lot of what I do here in this work is related to nonprofits, but I came up with this entire list of like empathy and leadership in nonprofits, empathy and volunteerism in nonprofits.
How about just empathy in the type of people that work in these fields?
Right. Empathy and codependency, empathy and boundaries, so I really want to get to the empathy and boundaries in nonprofits when you're dealing with people. What are the characteristics of people who tend to go into nonprofit work?
That's right.
And then what are their past histories, and can we draw any connections between their past histories and empathy as a trauma response?
Yep.
Like those kind of things, I think, is really where I want to focus a lot of my efforts. I was getting incredibly overwhelmed about what types of things I could do my research agenda on. And I'm like, at the end of the day, I am both empathy and boundaries. And yet, even as someone in this space, still has not figured out how to successfully navigate that across multiple different, avenues. And someone like me needs more information in order to better understand that.
And what's going to be the most exciting for me is when you conduct your actual studies, because you'll approach it from such a quantitative, qualitative point of view that it will just be freaking magic. It'll be really cool.
I think it's going to be fascinating.
I agree.
We're going to be leveling up this podcast where I'm going to come in and I'm going to be like, you're never going to believe what I just found out early preliminary results hot off the press. Right.
Let's discuss these. What could this mean? What is our hypothesis correct? Because we have a lot of these conversations.
Maybe our listeners will give us some hypotheses.
I mean, that'd be great.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
That'd be great.
So we call that a level up.
Exciting. Well, new journeys.
Here I am finishing us off with that sounded wrong.
I know. I was going to say that.
That sounded wrong. Way back to our puberty conversation that we had in the beginning of the show.
That's right.
With our intention card.
I'm excited for my happy ending.
I know that life is only limited by my imagination. I am dreaming bigger.
Love it.
With wet dreams. You're an idiot. Absolute idiot.
I loved that.
Me too. Isn't empathy amazing?
Well, we're amazing. I don't know about all this empathy stuff.
That's fine. I accept you wherever you are.
Oh, God.
I love you.
I love you too.
And if you love us, please like and subscribe to More Love, the Power of Empathy podcast, wherever you get your podcasts.
See you next time.